Hello and welcome to the Johnny Gets Cash YouTube channel. If you're a regular viewer, you will be aware that this channel is all about taking old cars and giving them a new lease on life before selling them and finding them a new forever home. Now, not a lot of cars come to me and I think, oh, it's too far gone, I'm probably not going to be able to do anything with that. But I think today I'm going to be showing you a car that I think I may have made a mistake with. I buy a lot of cars from all different sources, and one of those sources is auction. And I use the same auction house, I have done for years, and I tell you what, my dad, who taught me the trade, he has used them since the 70s when they first started and my dad was in the trade. So as a family, we've used them for a long time, and as such, we've got quite a good relationship with them, and I do trust their listings. So occasionally, when I'm too busy to get to the auctions, I will buy things sight unseen. I'll buy blind, purely based on a description given by the auction house. I don't do that very often because I do try and view everything I buy, but as mentioned, it's not always possible with everything going on. So yeah, once in a blue moon I have to buy blind. And I have bought the car I'm about to show you completely sight unseen, just off description. Now, I was aware there was a few issues with the car. That's to be expected, and that's kind of my bread and butter. That's not a problem at all. But when I went to pick up this car, having already bought and paid for it remotely, when I went to pick it up, it was a little bit worse than I expected, I think is fair to say. Now, you could argue that some people could argue the toss with the auction house about misdescription, send the car back or ask for their money back. To be honest, I'm not one of those. In the car trade, when you buy at auction, you're an adult, you take your own risks, okay? So if you choose to buy something sight unseen, my opinion is that you've bought it, it's yours, deal with it. And so that's what I've done with this car. I wasn't going to argue the toss with the auction house. We've got a good relationship and I'm not going to try and jeopardize that. So I think I've explained as best as I can without showing you the car. So I'm gonna whip the camera outside now and I'll show you what it is that I've bought and potentially just how much trouble I've got myself into. I hope you enjoy it because I think it's going to be a hard process for me. Let's go and have a look. So here is what I've bought. It is a 2008 Jaguar X-Type Sovereign. Okay, so it's a very high spec car. Now, this is the angle I'm showing you now. This is the angle that the car was pictured from in the listing that I bought it on. And I'll explain what I knew about it from that listing. I think this was graded at something like a B or a C, so not too bad. Now, I was aware there was damage to the front bumper. And if you come around here, you can see the bumper is hanging off. It's clearly damaged. Again, I was aware of that, no problems at all. And also being a 2008 car, you kind of expect there to be lots of little marks and things around it. Case in point is, if you look at this C-pillar here, there's lots of scratching in the clear coat. That's worse than I thought it was going to be, but you know, par for the course, whatever. So this is what I saw, and the reason I bought this car is, as I say, it's a Sovereign spec X-Type, so it's a very high spec example. It is a one owner car from new, and it is covered just over 81,000 miles. So that attracted me straight away. Aside from that, it's got full service history, and what's more, it's the 2.2 litre diesel with an automatic gearbox. So from what I know about these X-Types, that is a very saleable spec and configuration of this car. So I wasn't too worried about the damage to the front bumper. So I bought it. I can't tell you exactly what I've paid because, as always with these videos, the car hasn't sold yet, so I'm not going to reveal what I paid, but I'll tell you this. I paid all the money for this. I think I paid more than book value on it because there were, for some reason, several people on it in the auction. Now, whether those people were also bidding remotely like me and didn't know what they were looking at, or if they were, you know, friends of the owner or the dealer who had it in and they were bidding it up, I really don't know. But I paid strong money for this. I'd say, if not overbook, very high book for what would have been a clean example. So I'm going to walk around the car now and show you the delights that awaited me when I collected the car. Okay, so bear in mind, it was this side / rearmost quarter that I've seen the car from already. So let's go to the bits I knew about. The front bumper. Obviously that's had a bit of a tangle at some point. It's hanging off. It's, I would say, not repairable anyway because we're clearly missing parts of it. So new front bumper needed. Okay, that's not too much of an issue. As we move around, you can see this is a facelift example of the X-Type. So again, pretty attractive stuff. But we get to this side and you notice there's a bit of a mark on the driver's wing. And as you move down, you can see, hang on, there's a mark on that driver's door. What's going on? So, okay, I'm thinking, not sure what that is. As you get closer, Anyone who deals with cars will be able to tell you straight away there's something very wrong with this picture, but if you're not totally familiar, let me break it down for you. This that you can see here is the metal of the wing. Clearly this is paint. This more or less 1/4 inch white strip you can see is body filler, and that should not be the case. That should not be there. I'll come back to that in a second, because as we move down here to the driver's door, again, it's a very similar story. We've got the metal of the door and more than 1/4 inch, I'd say, of filler. Okay, so it appears what has happened to this car. It has had something of a smack on this driver's side. So the wing and the driver's door are basically, at least, I'd say the driver's wing is full of filler up to the middle of that arch, and the driver's door, there's a huge section of filler in the middle of it. So despite being a relatively low mileage one owner car, this thing has been through it, and it's been in for bodywork, and rather than replace the parts, what they've done is just make it up out of filler. Now I will say just quickly, the fact that that wing and that door are made up of filler and painted over, the filler work is incredible. If it wasn't for the damage, which has obviously happened again since the repair was done, the filler work is incredible. You would not know that was made of filler. And the paint match those guys have got, whoever did this work, bravo, because if putting filler in damage is your game, and it's not mine, but if it's your game and that's what you want to do, whoever's done this is the top of that game, because you just wouldn't know. But clearly this thing's been hit since it's been repaired, and therefore filler's never going to stand up to that, and the damage is come through again. Anyway, it gets better, so let's keep walking around. You can see these window trims, weather strips, are completely bubbling up, which isn't great. Didn't know about that, so they need doing. And the rear bumper. Okay, so the rear bumper is going to need repairing and repainting. Something I didn't know about. Arguably, I've seen some pictures from the back of this car, but they certainly weren't clear enough or close enough to pick up on that damage. I'm not too depressed about that rear bumper, because obviously I've got to do something with a new front bumper, which will no doubt need paintwork anyway. So if I've got this this chili red Jaguar paint code in the gun, I might as well fix and paint that rear bumper. So I'll show you inside the Jag now. Inside really isn't too foul. It's as I say, it's a sovereign spec car, so very nice level of finish in here. You've got the wooden steering wheel, your wooden dash, cream leather. It actually isn't too bad inside, if I'm honest. There's a few marks on that driver's seat which look like, I want to say biro pen or something, but I'm sure I can get that out. There's no massive damage inside. The worst bit of damage is that driver's door card, because clearly that door has been apart and the clips and whatnot have been broken on that door card, so I'll show you that. Okay, so this is the door card in question, and it's all just really loose, because as I say, that has clearly been apart. The door seal itself is hanging off. Again, it's kind of okay, because I'm going to have to change that door anyway, so inevitably I'll be buying a bare door and have to change all these parts over, so I'll be doing the clips and stuff when I do that. It's just a bit disappointing. Now the other thing to mention, these wheels, they are clearly not in great condition either, because none of the rest of the car is. So here we are. On the surface of it, it would appear that I've bought something of a lemon. In the car's defense, having done just over 81,000 miles, it does drive very nicely. This one was actually driven back from the auction, so it's done probably over around about 100 miles, I'd say, with us, and it's not let itself down. It drives very nicely. It sounds a bit raucous, it sounds a bit tractor-like, so whether we've got a bit of a blow somewhere on the exhaust, I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look at that. Now, I haven't even been under this car yet, because since we've had it, it's been a bit of an eyesore, and I've just put it to the back of the workshop and thought I'd deal with it down the line. So a common fault with these X-Types, as I'm aware, is rot on the inner sills. So I need to get it on the ramp and have a look and see what we're dealing with there. It might be okay, because it's relatively low mileage, but then given the rest of the car, I wouldn't be surprised if it was in a bit of a state. So we'll get on the ramp and have a look. If it does need welding, of course it's going to get it, because this car, like everything I sell, will be getting sold with 12 months MOT, and I want it to be as good as possible for the new owner. So what level of finish am I going to go for here? You've seen me do a couple of cars recently where I've gone for a really high-end finish. So we did that Mark 1 Focus, which was due for scrap. We brought that back and that was as good as showroom condition, in my opinion. And more recently, I did that MG ZS. Again, it was a car that had been sitting unused for a long time. But by the time I was finished with it, it looked virtually as good as the day it left the MG showroom in 2003. Is this Jaguar going to be the same? I have sort of flipped and flopped on what I'm going to do with it. I thought at first I'm just going to sell it back into the trade to someone else who fancies a restoration because I don't want to get involved. Then I thought, no, I've got to do something with it. I'll make it as good as new. And I think I've settled somewhere in the middle now. You know my attitude with these things. I think if a car has got the potential to go on again and continue to make someone else's life better with its presence, then I will do all I can to keep that car on the road. And I think despite clearly having a bit of a rough life, this X-Type does have something going for it, being the spec and the low mileage and the one owner. There's enough going for it that makes me think, okay, I'm going to make it better. I'm not going to make it as good as new, but I'm going to make it better. So what is the plan? I am going to change that front bumper. I'm going to change the wing. I'm going to change the driver's door. I'm going to give this thing a paint correction, get rid of all the hazy scratches and things you've seen. I'm going to fix this rear bumper and repaint it. Bodywork wise, I think that's possibly it. I mean, that's quite a lot of work, but you know, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'm going to do that. Underside, I don't know what I'm looking at there yet, so we'll check that out shortly and I'll make a plan there. It's got full service history and it's not due a service for another 6 months or so, or 2,000 miles, but I think what I'll probably do is give it a service anyway before going for MOT, because it just makes sense to me that if I'm selling a car, I really don't want the new owner to have to go through any spending for a little while. So yeah, I'll do that service. The wheels, I don't think I'm going to go as far as getting those refurbed. I'm just going to sort of make sure the tyres are good, of course, but I don't think I'm going to do anything with the wheels because it's just more spending on a car that I think realistically I'm already going to make a bit of a loss on. I can't see me making much, if any, profit on this car. It sounds like a silly thing for a dealer to say. If you know you're not going to make money on something, why bother? Well, you know, I do have a bit of a soft spot for these older cars that have been neglected, and much to my detriment, I like to give them a new lease on life and another chance. So that's what I'm going to do here. But that being said, I really don't want to lose my shirt too badly. So I need to be realistic. I'm going to make this thing look as good as possible, get rid of everything with filler in it, just make it look smart. 12 months MOT, new service. The thing drives lovely. I just want to make sure it sounds a bit better. And really, I think it will go to someone who's after something a bit sort of economical, but relatively smart, if you like, the Jaguar X-Type. Maybe someone with a dog or two who wants the estate. It's not a bad looking old thing, really. So I think basically that's what I'm going to do. Tidy it up as best I can, repair any obvious hideous damage to it or anything that's been overlooked, and just make it the best example that it can realistically be. So with all of that being said, the first thing I want to do is get this thing on the ramp, get it up in the air, and we'll see just how bad the underside is, because if that's really atrocious, then maybe everything I've just said counts for nothing, but until I get it up on the ramp, we just don't know. So that's the next step. Okay, so let's investigate the underside of this X-Type and see if it's as bad as above decks. Honestly, on first inspection, nothing under here is really too bad. I was expecting those inner sills to be a problem area. Now, the rearmost part of these inner sills is where it gives up, I believe, and you can see there's a little bit of surface corrosion starting on both sides, but nothing penetrative. So I think what I'll do is buzz that back on both sides and put a bit of treatment on there and then protectant, and I think they'll be good to go. But really, I'm pleasantly surprised, given how much of a disaster everything up top is. I'm really not too distraught about the condition of under here. So that basically just leads me to further assume that this is essentially a good car that just hasn't been looked after. And when it's been damaged and beaten and stuff, it hasn't had the repairs and the treatment it deserves. It's been neglected. That's a fair way of putting it. I think it's been neglected. So, yeah, that does confirm what I was saying before, that it does warrant the work. I mean, it's never going to be a concours car. It's just not. It's gone beyond that. But it will, I believe, be a very smart example again for someone So I think what I might as well do now, while there's stuff in here, I'll just deal with those two slightly sort of surface corrosion areas at the back part of the inner sills, get that treatment on there now, and then move on to the next bit. So the fight back starts here. Okay, so you're joining me out on the road in the X-Type, and you may be able to hear a slightly raucous engine tone. I've had a look, and I don't think the exhaust is blowing at all, so I'm not 100% sure what could have been the culprit for that noise. Obviously it needs a little bit more investigation, but on first inspection I didn't see anything terribly wrong under there which would cause that noise. It might just be the sound this engine makes. I mean, it's a pretty rudimentary engine at the end of the day. It's not too intrusive, but I'd like to get a bit better if I could. Anyway, in terms of this test drive, I just wanted to demonstrate that it's actually, despite the way this car looks, it drives really, really nicely. It rides well, it doesn't make any rattling noises or banging from the suspension. Automatic gearbox seems to work absolutely fine. It doesn't whine at all. It certainly doesn't hesitate when you put your foot down. I really can't fault the way this thing drives. I genuinely can't. And this is the first time I'm having a real play with all the controls as well, and I'm pleased to report that I've got the air conditioning running and that's blowing ice cold. I've got no warning lights on the dash. The steering wheel is tracking straight. There's no shaking or anything like that. I really can't complain too much. I mean, I've noticed, obviously I've got a fast flashing indicator, so okay, we've got an indicator bulb out somewhere, but that's really not too much of an issue. Even on the lock, it doesn't sound too bad. So very, very pleased with how this thing gets down the road. So I showed you around the car and all the problems that this car has, that I'm aware of so far at least. So it may come across as a bit of a bleak picture. I'm not, as of before, I'm not totally sure if I'll make a lot of money on this one or any money at all, but having looked underneath and being pleasantly surprised how good the underside of this car is, I definitely do feel even stronger that it does warrant saving. It's a good car at the core of it. It just hasn't been looked after, and I do believe that I am the person who can make this where it needs to be. I can make this car as good as it needs to be. So this episode has really all been about showing you what I've bought, explaining the concerns I have with it, and also trying to focus on the positives that do exist, and there are several. So I really want to give you a clear picture of what it is that I've bought and what I'm working with. That means in the next episode I will start to do the real dirty work on this thing. I'm going to pull apart all the damaged bodywork, make sure everything underneath is straight and as it should be. It's all superficial damage. It hasn't been in an accident as such, so I'm not expecting any hidden damage to the actual structure of the car. It's just superficial stuff like that wing and the bumper and things like that. So I'm not expecting too many horror stories there, but of course I will show you warts and all what I find. But as mentioned, that is for another episode because I have got quite a lot to do, and to try and squeeze it all in, this one just wouldn't happen. So please, if you've enjoyed this and you want to see how I get on with this old Jag, make sure you tune in next time. If you're not already subscribed, do so, hit the bell icon. You'll be reminded when a new video goes live, and then you can come along and see how I'm getting on with the old big cat here. But as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Cheers.